Welcome to ASIAL's Virtual Security Industry Briefing. I am Suzette Poe-Williams, ASIAL's New South Wales convener. To commence our presentation, I welcome John Galell, ASIAL's President.
Good morning and welcome to this ASIAL Industry Briefing. For those of you who don't know me, my name is John Galell and I'm the recently elected ASIAL President. I've served on the board since 2014 and as the Vice President since 2016. On behalf of the entire ASIAL board, I'd like to welcome you to this industry briefing. Over the next couple of minutes, I'd like to share with you a bit about our core themes and some of our strategies. So firstly, our core themes. At ASIAL, we have two main core themes. One is a safe and secure Australia. And the second, together, each achieves more. These two core themes will central around every discussion that we have and every publication that we do. Because we really want to promote what the private security industry is doing, and we're doing some really great stuff out there to keep our communities safe and to keep our country safe. And together, each achieves more. If you think about it, in the industry, there's over 150,000 licensed security personnel. We employ with our support staff about 180,000 people, and we contribute about $10 billion to the economy. We're much larger than the police force, we're much larger than the Australian Defence Force. And we're much larger than those two combined. That gives us a strong voice and it gives us a strong foot forward into telling the media and telling the government what we do to keep our great nation safe. We want to promote that, we want to get the message out, and we want to get it out very strongly. Some of our strategies that you'll see, we're going to really have some really great strategies being executed over the next 12 months. First and foremost is a research paper called Security 2025. This is a research paper, the first of its kind. It's going to tell you about the industry, where we are today, where we'll be in 5 years' time, and more importantly, how every member can get to that point in 5 years' time, so we're not falling behind. We have some other great strategies. We really want to promote women in security and how we can get more females into the industry. We want to promote careers in the industry. There's a lot of great people out there, a lot of talented people that have spent their entire working career in the industry. We want to promote that, and we want to promote others to come into the industry through training, through promotions to universities and TAFEs, and through other means. You're going to see some really, really good stuff over the next 12 months. I'm going to keep this very short and sweet. If you'd like to get in contact with me, you can contact me through LinkedIn or through ASIAL. Hopefully I can meet everyone after all these lockdowns. So thank you and enjoy this industry briefing. Thank you.
Thank you, John, for your presentation and congratulations on your recent appointment. I would like to now introduce Jack App and Julian Cartwright from Guardhouse, our sponsors for this virtual briefing.
Good morning, everyone. We're delighted to be the breakfast sponsor for another ASIAL event. We've put a QR code at the bottom of each page so you guys can download a copy of our brochure at any time. For those who don't know us, my name is Jack. I also have Julian with me, and we're both co-founders of Guardhouse. We wanted to give you a little bit of an update today on where we're at as a business and some of the exciting features that we've got coming up. We launched Guardhouse in 2018, and in that time we've now partnered with 112 companies nationally who are publishing over 90,000 shifts a week and collectively have over 38,000 staff. Here's some of our partnered clients.
Our customers love our best-in-class features and workflow on employee scheduling, time and attendance, payroll and invoicing, and instant reporting, along with GPS mobile time clock, automated license checks, offered shifts, skill matching, and our rich customer portal functionality. This results in the benefits of a 62% reduction in time to build rosters and communicate shifts to staff, a 100% reduction in the time it takes to run license checks manually, a 56% reduction in payroll processing time, and a 48% reduction in invoicing generation and distribution time. The companies that choose Guardhouse see an average of 741% return on investment. Plenty of life left in the year, and our development team are working hard to deliver some exciting functionality before the end of 2021. We'll be releasing automated compliance management, labour partner live rosters, pre-shift calls and on-shift welfare checks, and customer portal shift requests.
We're offering those who attended the breakfast this morning a 20% discount on their first year's subscription, and all our contact details are in the QR code when you scan it. Thank you, and hopefully speak to you soon.
Thank you, Jack and Julian. Your offerings and support of our industry is certainly appreciated. I would like now to introduce Brian DeCaires, ASIAL's CEO, to provide an update on ASIAL's Security 2025 initiative.
At the end of last year, ASIAL commissioned the Australian Security Research Centre to undertake a comprehensive analysis of the threats, challenges and opportunities facing the private security industry in Australia. The result of that study is the Security 2025, a roadmap for the future report. The report acknowledges the vital role the private security industry plays as part of Australia's national security mix, as a force multiplier and a business enabler. The report looks at a range of different issues, from security threats, mega trends, the issue of digitisation, labour market challenges, and a range of other issues that the industry needs to consider as it plans for the future. In setting out a clear roadmap for the industry, the report has found out that there's a number of key things that needs to be done, and probably the key takeouts that I'd like to just briefly touch on before I hand over to Gav. And that is a range of activities that the security industry itself needs to undertake as part of the planning for the future. And obviously within that, ASIAL has a key role to play as part of that. There's also a range of key activities and key steps that regulators need to undertake. And of course, end users have a range of initiatives and steps that they need to complete in order to get to where we want to get to. But I think what the single most important message that I'd like to make today is that to build organizational capability and capacity within the private security industry for the future and to meet the future needs of customers depends on a combined approach between industry, regulators, and end users. Together, we will be able to address some of the issues that are affecting the industry and that will be holding the industry back. But in silos, we will not achieve that. So the key takeout before I hand over to Gav, that I'd like everyone, hopefully you will all read the report and digest all that's in there, but is that we need to work together, as I say, government, industry, and end users. So I'll now hand you over to Dr. Gav Schneider, who is the lead researcher for the project.
For those of you who've been following the research process for the Security 2025 project, you'll know that we contacted many of you and asked you to complete surveys. And remember, those surveys looked not just from the provider perspective, we also looked at the consumers and users of private security. We ran workshops, focus groups, and conducted a robust set of interviews. And my colleague, Dr. Paul Johnson, spent a lot of time working through literature. If you have a look at the end of the report, you'll see we looked at 30 plus different documents, research reports, and items of relevance to the study. So I'm very pleased to say that we've produced a product that I think is Australia's largest study into the private security industry. And we've got something, as Brian mentioned, that will hopefully provide a roadmap, not just for users of security or providers of security, but for regulators and other stakeholders to understand the critical role that the private security industry plays in securing Australia. It's not simple, and I urge you please to take the time to read the report. There's going to be the report and a summary of the report. You'll see there's lots of graphics and key takeaways. It's quite a user-friendly document. We will also be presenting and talking about this at the Protective Security and Government Conference, at ASIAL Security Conference in November, and we're running a few podcasts and a few other items. But in essence, the report itself is useless if we don't apply what is in it. So what I'd urge you to be doing when you work through the report is just start to think about those key takeaways you can apply in your own business, or the education components you can start driving for your clients, and the combined voice we need to have when looking at trying to enhance and improve regulation. It's not going to be simple, but as Brian mentioned, the key takeaway is that we will not get the security industry that we want and deserve and contribute as effectively as we can to Australia's national security interests unless it is an integrated approach where primarily three parties, the providers, the users, and the regulators, start working together to drive a level of service and performance that is world-class. There are numerous trends, and Brian alluded to a few of them, that need to be taken into account. And whether you work in electronic security, cyber security, or physical security and man guarding, it's quite important that we slowly start the shift to digitization and implementing some of the technology tools and options that are now available even to small-scale providers. If we don't, we are slowly going to find that we are not as competitive as security industries in other countries. We did note that there are resistance to change, challenges with some of these pieces, but these need to be overcome. So in summary, thank you to ASIAL and thank you to all of you who participated and shared your knowledge, insights, and thoughts with us to put the study and the report together. I would say that producing the report is a great milestone, but it only starts the journey. And I urge you, please, to provide feedback to ASIAL or reach out to us if you'd like to know more. But as a parting message, I think we can all start working together at the little pieces we can control and influence to start moving our industry and sector forward now that we have a robust roadmap in place. Thanks for listening, and I hope to see you at another event soon.
Thank you, Gav. I am sure we will see the Security 2025 initiative be the benchmark for the direction of our industry. I would like now to introduce Cameron Smith, Director, Security Licensing and Enforcement Directorate, New South Wales Police, to provide a regulatory industry update.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity from ASIAL to have a talk to all its members virtually. I apologise for my unkempt appearance. Like many, I'm desperately hoping for hairdressers to be able to open up again soon. But I just wanted to talk you through what SLED has been up to this year in these unusual circumstances. I'm very proud of my team for keeping business going pretty much as usual. There have been some impacts on our volumes and the activities we've been able to do, but I'll talk you through those. So I thought the easiest way to approach this was just to break down each of my teams and talk about their activities in that way. So we start firstly with the licensing services team. So I'm providing stats in this little presentation that are current as at the 31st of August this year, and contrasting those to the same period last year in circumstances where there's been a notable difference. So we've had an almost 20% reduction in the license applications we've received. We're getting about a bit over 75% of those applications lodged online these days. And pleasingly, we get less than 20% of the applications these days made under the Mutual Recognition Act. Many of you would know that for a very long time, we were getting about 50% of all new license applications made under mutual recognition. So to be back under 20% is very pleasing, and that's recognition or an outcome of a lot of hard work by my team, really in investigating what was occurring in other jurisdictions, providing intelligence information both to other regulators and to the Australian Skills Quality Authority, which resulted in some notable training organisations based in other jurisdictions being shut down by ASQA. But it's also a sign of the cooperation we got from other jurisdictions, making some amendments to their processes, requiring evidence that the person actually did require legitimately a license in those other jurisdictions, not simply as a pathway to a New South Wales license. And we also, license renewals stayed pretty stagnant in terms of the comparison between last year. A bit over 95% of renewals lodged online. So that helps us a lot in reducing the manual effort associated with those. And I know from the feedback I get from licensees that they quite enjoy No one likes and no one enjoys renewing a license because it involves a payment, but the online process is pretty quick and easy. Not much change in the volume of current licenses, but they'd be interested 55,000 current Class 1 or Class 2 licenses and 5,500 roughly master licenses, although that's not much of a change from the same period last year. It is almost 40% increase since SLED was first formed, and that is an outcome of all the work we've done to address unlicensed operators within the industry, both through education but also enforcement activities. So we're definitely significantly grown the size of the licensed industry in New South Wales. The customer relations team, quite a significant drop in phone calls received by the team, but pleasingly, they've maintained quite a good standard of service. I know other jurisdictions have struggled a bit in terms of maintaining service levels, but we've done very well in my book. So 89% of all calls have been answered within 3 minutes. A significant reduction also in the emails received. This year, the customer relations team launched a new SLED website and also our Facebook page. Now, I'd like to be able to attribute the significant reduction in phone calls and emails to the fact that our website allows much better self-servicing of inquiries, but I'm not certain that that has had that level of impact, but I'm sure it has contributed to a reduction in inquiries to us. The Facebook page has been really important for us in increasing our engagement with industry and also helping us to educate people about their legislative obligations. We publish a post every business day, and so we're up to 166 Facebook posts. And we have close to 5,000 regular followers, or registered followers, if you like, of Facebook. I'm not a Facebook user myself, so some of the terminology is not that clear to me, but as I say, these people follow our page regularly, apparently get alerted whenever we do post something, but the number of visitors to the page significantly exceeds that number of followers. The adjudication team, quite a significant reduction in applications refused, which goes hand in hand with the reduction of applications we've received, but still the reduction is higher for refused than in applications receipted. But licenses revoked has remained pretty steady in terms of the same period last year. And notably, we have had 50% more demand on our services from other agencies for doing probity assessments for them for those high-risk industry types that are shown there. So other agencies, for example, tattoo artists and parlours are currently regulated by fair trading, explosives by safe work, and these agencies seek our services because we're specialists in the area of probity assessments. So we provide that input to their licensing processes. The assessment team, only one indicator which is relevant externally, but so their key task is to assess the reports of non-compliance that we get from members of the public or from industry. And you'll note there basically more than double the number of non-compliance reports for this year than for the same period last year. And that in turn was about double the previous year on that. So I think the fact that we're promoting more the work that we do in the compliance and enforcement space, the fact that we have an online reporting tool for non-compliance, and we do promote that fairly heavily through our Facebook page, is driving up the number of reports we get. And the assessment team is really responsible for determining what happens to those reports. So in some instances, they will deal with them themselves through an education letter to the industry participant that's identified as not complying. In many instances, we'll refer them to our compliance and enforcement team for investigation or audit. And we still get quite a number of reports which don't actually relate to SLED activities. There continues to be a misunderstanding by many in the industry that SLED is able to investigate or should be investigating reports of cash in hand payments or under award payments. And the assessment team will do a little analysis of those and bundle them up and refer them to the relevant agencies such as Fair Work. So we don't simply put those matters in through the shredder. We make sure that they get referred to the relevant agency. The compliance and enforcement team, almost a 15% reduction on the number of audits, but I'm still pretty pleased by that 424 compliance audits in a lockdown situation. So the reduction is really because of the inability for us to get out there and going into security businesses to do audits. But because we've been relatively quiet on that front, we've been proactive with our audits, firstly of security quarantine hotels, and that's been continuing since the start of the program. But then when the government pushed for major retailers to engage security to enforce QR code compliance, we knew that would have flow-on effects for, we knew that it was important for SLED to have a role in making sure that those security firms that had been engaged were complying with their obligations. So I think we did to date about 59 audits of the security of major retailers. Sadly, as we expected or were concerned we would find, we have found instances of unauthorised subcontracting. We have found matters that we've referred to Fair Work in relation to cash in hand payments, under reward payments. So that has been disappointing, but that's the reason we did that proactive auditing program. 154 compliance investigations, pretty static with last year. Continuing to issue penalty infringement notices and formal cautions when the need arises. But our focus is in the first instance to try and achieve compliance through education rather than the issuing of penalty infringement notices. The training regulation team have, despite the fact that you would think that courses would be pretty quiet in a lockdown situation, because SLED was involved in initiating that funded training for the security industry to try and give a bit of a boost, particularly numbers coming through the hotel quarantine program, but also for other areas of the industry. We have seen an increase in the number of course approvals, up almost 20% on the same period last year. And importantly, our audits have increased by about 80% because having initiated that funded training, which had been historically an issue of some concern, we felt an obligation to be out there auditing to make sure that the funded training was being delivered effectively and with integrity.
Thank you, Cameron. It is always great to have your input. I would like now to introduce Cara Pritchard and Leanne Rayner from Mass National to present on technical training funding.
Hi, my name's Cara Pritchard and I'm from Mass National in South Australia, and today I'm joined by my lovely colleague Leanne Rayner, who's from our Victorian team. We're going to talk all things apprenticeships and traineeships, but we're also going to share with you some really exciting news on a subsidy called Boosting Apprenticeship Commencement Wage Subsidy. Over to you, Leanne.
Thanks, Cara. So who are Mass National and who are we? Mass National is an Australian apprenticeship support network provider, which is a mouthful. We've been delivering apprenticeship support services for 23 years, and that includes promoting training and employment pathways. So our organisation works to support industry through workforce development, and we support schools and community groups, job seekers, career changers and school leavers into meaningful employment. So the most common question we get, Cara, as you know, is what is an apprenticeship or a traineeship? So an Australian apprenticeship, which is a common phrase, it's an Australian apprenticeship is an apprenticeship or traineeship, which is a learning pathway that combines paid on-the-job training with formal study through a registered training organisation. So basically, earn as you learn. By completing an apprenticeship or traineeship, the learner gains a nationally recognised qualification as well.
You're absolutely right, Leanne. We do get asked that question all the time. And the good news is we are here to work with you to help you understand which apprenticeships and traineeships are actually available in your sector. So what are the benefits of apprenticeships and traineeships? Well, from the employer's point of view, there is funding that's available, and that is funding that we're going to go into a bit more detail about in this recording. But there is also state government initiatives that will be specific to your business. So we can actually work with you to help you understand those. That could be things like payroll tax and other incentives that are happening in particular states. It also leads to improved productivity. So if a staff member has been trained properly, they are able to undertake their work and you will see benefits of that training in their daily work. It also leads to increased staff retention, and trained employees quite often meet legislative requirements of industry. So lots of different industries will have certain requirements where training has to be done to a certain level, and you can actually attain those, meet those levels by undertaking apprenticeships or traineeships. There are also benefits for both the apprentice or trainee. They can gain relevant training for their job role. As Leanne mentioned earlier, they achieve a nationally recognised qualification. They earn while they learn, and it does increase their loyalty because they can feel that they're being invested in as part of your business.
Absolutely, Cara. So funding, and this is one of our other common questions that we receive and something that we love to talk about. So funding for trainees and apprentices. So what incentives are available to those who undertake a traineeship or an apprenticeship? So potential standard incentives. So these are the incentives that have been around all the time or have been around for years. Obviously, there's eligibility criteria, but the basics are that there's a commencement incentive, which is paid at the 6-month point, and that's around $1,500. The completion incentive, which is paid on successful completion of the traineeship or apprenticeship, which is $2,500. And as you mentioned before, Cara, there's also extra state funding as well. But in terms of the federal funding, there's also extra funding available for employers who take on school-based apprentices or trainees, or for those undertaking a qualification that's on the National Skills Shortage list. And that could also be up to an additional $4,000. So you could have your $4,000 commencement and completion and an additional $4,000 for somebody undertaking an NSNL qualification for supporting adult apprentices as well. So anyone over 21. So that's an extra incentive also.
And we can work with you to help you understand which qualifications are on that National Skills Needs list, because there are some qualifications that are relevant to your industry there. Absolutely. Now, without further ado, a bit of information around the boosting apprenticeship commencements. So as we all know, COVID has continued to be a challenge here in Australia and obviously a challenge in some of the states that we work in at the moment. So out of that, the Boosting Apprenticeship Commencement's wage subsidy was generated, and it is a subsidy that provides extra support to employers who engage new apprentices and trainees, and the support is in the form of a 12-month wage subsidy capped at $28,000 per eligible apprentice or trainee. So that it is actually per, so you could potentially take on 10 new apprentices or trainees and actually attract the subsidy for all of them. It is available to all new workers who meet primary eligibility, and we'll take you through a bit of information on that as we go through this slideshow. It also is available to existing workers who are on the trades list, and again, we'll work with you so you understand who that is specifically, or existing workers who have transitioned from casual to part-time or full-time, or from part-time to full-time to undertake the apprenticeship or traineeship. Now, I know that sounds like a mouthful, but we will actually work through with you individually to help you understand who that is that falls into those categories. So
yeah,
over
right,
to you, Leanne.
Thanks. And I think in addition to that, I mean, this COVID incentive or the Boosting Apprenticeships Commencement wage subsidy is all about getting people into work or creating more permanent positions. So converting those people from casual into permanent part-time or permanent full-time positions. So
absolutely, the government are happy to support the fact that employers are actually able to provide those opportunities to the individuals, and then in return the government want to support them through that process.
Agreed. So the wage subsidy, and am I eligible, which is a common question. What is that primary eligibility that you spoke about before? So for an employer to be eligible for the Boosting Apprenticeship Commencement wage subsidy, the apprentice or trainee must be undertaking a certificate 2 or higher qualification, which, as you mentioned, we can go through in more detail. And they must meet that primary eligibility. So they've either got to be citizen, an Australian citizen or permanent resident, or a New Zealand passport holder who's been in the country for 6 months or longer. They must have appropriate employment and training arrangements that we mentioned before. And if they're an existing worker, they must meet that existing worker criteria that we mentioned just on the earlier slide. They also need to have a training contract that's formally approved by the state training authority in their state, but that's the part that we assist with. So we get that training contract done, and once it's submitted and approved, then you're hunky-dory.
So really, we're here to support you through that whole process. Now, what is classified as a new worker? So in the government's eyes for this particular program, a new worker is someone who's worked for the business less than 3 months full-time or less than 12 months part-time or casual. So there is a fairly large window there, and we can sit down with you and look at your full workforce development piece and work out who those new workers are and make sure that there is an opportunity to maximise the subsidy for them. An existing worker is someone who's been with the current employer for more than 3 months full-time or more than 12 months part-time. But as we mentioned before, there are opportunities to transition people from casual to part-time or full-time, or from part-time to full-time. And what kind of qualifications can be done through an apprenticeship or traineeship? Well, you can actually undertake a certificate through to advanced diploma qualifications. And I think a lot of the time, people think apprenticeships and traineeships are entry-level qualifications and qualifications that aren't at that higher level, but there are so many different, I think it's over 500 qualifications that are available. So we can work through that with you. And in your industry, there are potential qualifications in the ICT, security, the cabling. There are also business certificates, because there are people who would be working in the offices or working in the back end to support you. And there are also leadership qualifications that are available. So we haven't actually listed all of the qualifications because there are so many of them, but we can work with you individually to work out what the appropriate qualification is for your business.
Yeah, absolutely right, Cara. And I think it's important to note that when we talk about apprenticeships and traineeships, everyone thinks about those traditional trade apprenticeships that are available, and everybody knows those trades, but it equally applies to traineeships, where it could be basically any job that you think of, there could be a traineeship connected to that.
Absolutely.
So is my business eligible for the Boosting Apprenticeships Commencement, or I'm going to call it back from now on? It's a mouthful.
Much easier.
Yeah, all businesses are eligible regardless of their size, income or geographic location. To be eligible, you need to engage an Australian apprentice or trainee anytime between the 5th of October 2020, so last year, and the 31st of March 2022. So that 12 months starts whenever your start date of your traineeship or apprenticeships commences. And your Australian apprentice or trainee needs to be undertaking that certificate 2 or higher qualification and have a training contract that's fully approved or formally approved by the relevant state training authority. And as Cara mentioned before, we'll support you through this whole process. So if you have somebody that you're just not sure about whether they're eligible or not, or you've got a whole group of people whether you're not sure, or you're wanting to take someone on, we'll actually work with you to give you some sort of indication of what you may be eligible for.
So I guess this is a pretty important one. How much is the subsidy? Well, as we mentioned earlier, it is up to $28,000. So the wage subsidy is 50% of the Australian apprentice or trainee's gross wage paid, capped at $7,000 a quarter. So there'll be 4 different quarters, and in each of them, there is up to the $7,000 that can be claimed back. The wage subsidy is available for wages paid in a 12-month period from the commencement date, which Leanne alluded to earlier. When will the payments be made? A very common question we get asked. So as I said, they are paid quarterly in arrears, and they are directly into the employer's nominated bank account. So MAS do administer this process. We send out a claim form. We ask you to fill out the claim form and attach the wage evidence for that period of time. And then we go through and pay the claim, which I think I've just answered my next question before I even got to it. Over to you, Leanne.
Thanks, Cara. And just to remember, something to remember is that this Boosting Apprenticeship Commencement Wage Subsidy is in addition to those standard incentives that we mentioned before. So it could be $28,000 wage subsidy plus the $4,000 standard incentives, and plus any extra incentives that may be available through the federal government, plus any state government incentives that might be available as well. So are there any specific exclusions for back? So an employer will not be paid back or the Boosting Apprenticeships Commencement Wage Subsidy where the employer is receiving any other form of Australian government wage subsidy or equivalent for that apprentice or trainee, or that the Australian apprentice or trainee is undertaking a qualification that they've already done before, basically. So even if it's an upgrade of the same qualification, they won't be able to attract them back. So long as they're doing something new, that's all fine. And then what if your apprentice or trainee cancels or suspends through the claim period? That's fine. All you need to do is let us know and you get paid up until that date where they've cancelled. Or if they're suspended, you can pick up that payment again once they're back and working with you.
Awesome. Thanks, Leanne. Well, that brings us to the end and really what's next. So our team, as we've mentioned throughout the entire recording, we're here to support you through the process. We have staff members all across Australia who are out in their cars, available to pop into your business and sit down with you and learn about your business and learn about what your needs are, and then work out what the best workforce development plan is for you that aligns to apprenticeships and traineeships, so you're able to maximise the opportunities that are available. You'll see on the next slide mine and Leanne's details. You're more than welcome to contact us directly. We can link you with the appropriate people, and we will be online to answer your questions. So we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leanne.
Thank you, Cara and Leanne. I would like now to introduce Brian DeCaires, ASIAL's CEO, to provide an industry update and give insight into the 2021 ASIAL Annual Report.
Thank you, Suzette, and thank you all for your participation this morning. I just wanted to take a few minutes to run through a few industry issues that have happened over recent months. As you will have seen over the last few weeks, we've circulated a copy of the 2021 ASIAL Annual and Financial Report through First Alert and other channels. The past year, whilst it's been a difficult one for the industry and for ASIAL itself, we've managed to perform particularly well this last year, and we saw some positive signs within our membership. If you look at some of the reports and charts that are contained within the report, we saw membership growth of 4.25%, and we saw strong member engagement, which is shown by the illustration on the right, which shows the use of the ASIAL website, the amount of email notifications that were sent out to members. So engagement and membership growth was very strong for the past year, which is very encouraging. Similarly, we've run a number of different campaigns and different issues that have arisen over the last year. We reached about an audience of around a total audience reach potential of just under 60 million. We continue to see a strong growth in our social media platforms in terms of followers, and we've also seen significant membership, not only membership engagement, but media engagement. So we've had 120 media mentions compared with 73 in the year before. Financially was also a very positive year with a surplus, an operating surplus of just over about $110,000. We also had a revaluation of the Security Industry House, which was purchased back in 2009, which saw an additional revaluation of the building, which has seen the reserves of the association continue to rise. The good news is the association's in good hands and in a sound financial position. Over the recent weeks, we've also been calling on members to promote vaccination within their workforce. It's an important thing as we go through this race to get to the roadmap out of the lockdown. We're seeing some encouraging signs in some states. So what I'd encourage you to do is have a look at the materials that we've sent out. There are a number of tools that are available to help you promote vaccination within your workforce. So if you need any help, please give us a call and we'll be happy to help you. In July, we celebrated International Security Officers Day, the 5th annual event that we've actually had this day. Through ASIAL's involvement and those of the industry participants, we've reached an audience of over 30 million through editorial features in a range of newspapers, radio, as well as social media, not just here in Australia, but around the world. And the following slide just shows some of the pictures and some of the photos. We were delighted to have Nick Caldas as the patron for the event this year. We even got support from the Home Affairs Minister, who posted to social media on the day. We will start work in the coming months for the 2022 event. So if you didn't participate this year, please get on board next year and have a role to play as part of promoting the day and promoting the role that private security officers play around, not just Australia, but around the world. The Security 2021 event, unfortunately, the event scheduled to be held as a face-to-face event at the end of November has had to be converted to a virtual event, but we will continue with the ASIAL conference program with all, if not most of the speakers that were confirmed to do the face-to-face program. It is an impressive lineup. Some of the speakers are featured here. If you haven't seen the program, please go online to the ASIAL website. You will be able to see who the speakers are, the topics, but one of the key themes, and it's one of the themes that you will notice in the Security 2025 report, which was issued last week, is that the issue of digitization, digital transformation, the use of artificial intelligence and technology will be key themes running through our industry over the coming years. So please have a look at the conference, get involved. It's a very full-on program, but I think you will find it very enlightening and very helpful in terms of planning for the future. Another upcoming event, which unfortunately has had to be changed to a virtual event, is the 2021 Awards for Excellence. So this year's program, as always, will feature the ASIAL Awards, the Outstanding Security Performance Awards, and the Australian Security Medals Foundation Awards. The awards will be announced on the 27th of October. Registrations for the event are now open, and they are free. So please, if you haven't already done so, please go online at the website address there, or you can email us at security@asial to get a link to the registration page. But please register. It promises to be a very an interesting evening, and some very worthwhile recipients will be announced. Another activity that's happened since we were able to last meet was the announcement of the delayed ASIAL board elections, whereby John Galell was elected as the new president of ASIAL and Rachel Saunders as the vice president, and the other 6 directors as listed there were elected. Over the coming months and year, hopefully we'll get a chance for you to meet face to face with our new board. But again, if you haven't had a look at the ASIAL website, there's information there about the directors in the annual report profile. So please have a look at that. Another issue which has been bubbling along over the last 12 to 18 months is the issue of insurance for not just the private security industry, but for many other industry sectors. ASIAL made a submission in June to the Insurance Council of Australia's strategic review of the availability and affordability of insurance cover. And as a result of that submission, we have been invited to participate in a project to look at how we can make insurance more affordable and available to a broad range of industries, not just security, but certainly security. There are a number of different areas that that working group will look at, but certainly one which is becoming increasingly of interest and concern to the industry is the issue of COVID insurance, where a growing number of insurers are having exclusions for COVID cover. So that will be an issue that we will look to address. You will have noticed over the last couple of months that there was a public comment document issued for the AS 2201 intruder alarm standard. That comment period is now closed, and the final amendments will be made to the standard, which will hopefully be available either later this year or early next year. There is currently a public comment draft out for security detection dogs, which closes on the 11th of October. Again, if you're interested in that, that's a link to the document is on the ASIAL website. But if you have any comments on that, please ensure you get your comments into the Standards Australia portal by the 11th of October. Finally, The ASIAL podcast series continues with the latest 2 podcasts look at crisis and issues management in a post-COVID world and developing a convergent security strategy to protect an organization. Both of the podcasts involve speakers who will be speaking at the Security 2021 conference in November. So again, I encourage you to have a look at those podcasts. There are a back catalogue of podcasts that we have put out, and we will be putting an additional vodcast, which will be coming out late next week, on the Security 2025 report, which will include a range of different perspectives, and that will analyse some of the issues that are raised in the report and what that actually means for the industry. So I would encourage you to keep an eye open for these podcasts and the vodcasts that they put out there to help you make some decisions and understand what's happening in our industry. So that brings me to an end. I'll hand you back now to Suzette.
Thank you, Brian. That was great. I would like to now introduce Chris Delaney, ASIAL's Industrial Relations Advisor, to provide an IR industry update.
Hello, I'm Chris Delaney, ASIAL's Workplace Relations Advisor. Well, lots been happening in the industrial landscape, and much of it seems to be driven by the COVID-19 pandemic. In New South Wales, the state government yesterday announced its roadmap to lifting restrictions. Security employers will need to be agile in order to respond to the changing demands of clients as these restrictions ease. Employers have to deal with a lot of difficult questions, and often the questions do not have simple black and white answers. The most asked question we get these days is, can an employer direct an employee to have a vaccination against COVID-19? The short answer, of course, is yes. But with a lot of these things, there is a caveat. Any direction you give to an employee must be lawful and reasonable. And in the context of the COVID-19 vaccinations, the criteria for determining what is lawful and reasonable will fall into one of 2 areas. It'll either be a government public health order, or as a result of the work health and safety legislation, specifically Section 19 of the Work Health and Safety Act, which has in most states harmonised legislation. Now, state governments have in some limited instances issued public health orders restricting unvaccinated workers from entering or leaving LGAs of concern to attend work. Or in some instances, only allowing authorised workers who have had at least 1 vaccination to work in authorised workplaces. So only in very limited circumstances will employers have the right to direct employees to have the COVID-19 vaccination, or for that matter, the flu vaccination. For an employer to reach the point where they could be satisfied that the direction to vaccinate would be lawful and reasonable, in my opinion, it would be necessary to conduct a risk assessment of the work, where the work is performed, and the available PPE and risk mitigation factors. The Fair Work Ombudsman has provided a worthwhile profile of what might be considered 4 tiers of risk. We recommend that members visit the Fair Work Ombudsman's website and have a look at that. In a risk assessment, you'll need to consider the following questions. Does the employee work with people who would be vulnerable to COVID-19 and experience serious health issues? Does the employee work in a high-risk area, for instance, hotels, hotel quarantine, airlines, that sort of thing? Is the vaccination essential for the performance of the work? Is there a genuine reason why the employee may refuse to have the vaccination? How will a refusal affect the work health and safety responsibilities of the employer towards other employees or towards the community? Are there opportunities to redeploy an employee who refuses to be vaccinated in order to alleviate those safety issues? Now, ASIAL doesn't recommend that employers give directions to employees to be vaccinated against COVID-19 without having first sought sound professional advice. We will soon have a webinar to deal with the other COVID-related questions. Can I make vaccination a condition of employment? When we return to work, can I insist that only vaccinated employees can come back to work? What can I do if the customer will only have fully vaccinated security at the workplace? And should I have a return to work plan? Now, those issues will be discussed at a later date, and we encourage you to contact us if you need to know the answers. But just quickly on casual conversion, only a few days ago, on the 27th of September, employers other than small businesses were obliged to offer eligible casuals conversion to permanent employment if the casual has been employed by the employer for 12 months and during the last 6 months has worked a regular pattern of hours on an ongoing basis, which, without significant adjustment, the employee could continue to work as a full-time or part-time employee. Now, if you haven't commenced that exercise, you should do so. If you need help or advice on that or any other workplace issue, you can contact me, ir@asial.com.au, and thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and for your industry advice and member support. That is certainly valued. Peter Johnson, ASIAL's Compliance and Regulatory Affair Advisor, will now give a short update.
Thank you, Suzette. We encourage all to maintain currency with your COVID requirements. New South Wales continues to provide the pathway out of COVID, and we must be responsive to the opportunities and changes. We continue to struggle to maintain new entrants to the industry due to delays in training opportunities, assessment, and application processing, including the requirements for fingerprinting. We hope SLED can provide industry support in moving through these challenges. COVID vaccination continues to be a priority of discussion. In addition to the work Chris Delaney has done with advice and publications available on the ASIAL website, the writing is on the wall that work, access, travel, and freedom of movement in the community will be dependent upon the level of vaccination of a person. Please remember that all ASIAL publications are not available to the public. Access to many publications can only be viewed if you are logged into the ASIAL member area on our website. As we know, the Federal Automatic Mutual Recognition of Occupational Licensing and Registrations, AMR, commenced on 1 July 2021. This impacts on individual licence holders only. At this stage, Northern Territory has introduced an AMR process that includes security. Victoria, New South Wales, and the Australian Capital Territory have declared a 12-month delay for the introduction of AMR. All other jurisdictions are required to introduce a legislative process for AMR to apply. The New South Wales Government has published information on what AMR covers at this stage. It does include responsible service of alcohol, RSA, competency card, and which is the only area that will impact at this stage on the security industry. Cameron may be able to further assist us in this area. Thank you, Suzette, and I'll be happy to assist with questions.
Thank you, Peter, and all our speakers. We will now have question and answers.
I think that one of the first questions come through in relation to Guardhouse, and either Jack or Julian can answer this one. What is the situation in regard to your integration with the MYOB package?
Morning, everyone. Great to be here again. We do currently integrate with MYOB and Xero for both payroll and invoicing. We also do custom integrations for an accounting packages if required.
Just in relation to that, Jack, do you have a further opportunity of integration with work health and safety measures there?
Yeah, great question. It's definitely something that we're looking at in next year, early next year, in terms of APIs, in terms of additional onboarding platforms and those sort of platforms as well.
All right, thanks, Jack. And certainly ASIAL appreciates the continued support of Guardhouse in relation to these. A couple of questions have come through. Suzette's received one on just in relation to an SMS on the traineeships and apprenticeships. And maybe this one, either for Cara or Leanne, we don't have apprenticeships generally in the security industry. So, but we do have the opportunity of traineeships. So how do you see that working within the security industry?
Yeah, hi, Peter. Yes, look, it's apprenticeships or traineeships. So essentially, if you think of apprenticeships as generally trade qualifications, so your carpenters and your plumbers, traineeships are generally all the non-trades. So that could also be cabling, which is something that security industry has been looking at. It could be security operations. It could be your contact centre that you're looking at, or your business or admin trainee. It can be finance, HR. So basically any job that you can think of that's non-trade will probably have a traineeship for.
All right, and so therefore it really covers a lot of areas in security, but also the administration areas in organisations if they have a course that may actually fit into that package as well.
Yeah, agreed. We actually spoke with one of your members, I think a couple of weeks back, regarding their contact centre. So their radio room in their contact centre were looking at doing some sort of upskilling and training for new staff in customer engagement, or the business package now that it comes under.
Yeah, certainly, I think we just don't quite think, we always get confused on that, you know, what it actually covers. And I think probably our industry generally, and we see it nationally, we've probably been a little bit ignorant in what's available. And we know that from an organisation point of view, all the help we can get is important, and there is financial help there. So thanks very much. Just in relation to that, one comes through that what does it cost an employer to engage Maz National in getting this service?
Look, we're funded by the federal government, Peter, to provide education, information, support, advice, and so on to employers and apprentices and trainees. So we're a free service to anybody. So we can provide career advice to, say, somebody looking for to start their career, or we can provide advice to employers on their workforce solutions and so on. And we also pay government incentives. So the incentives that we're talking about, the back incentive and the standard incentives, we pay those incentives to the employer as well.
Yeah, that's excellent. And look, and again, just an opportunity. It's not as though we're going to chase the bucket of money, but I think we've got to realise that opportunities exist there. So thank you very much. I do appreciate it.
Funding there is there to support employers to take on more staff, or upskill their current staff. So I definitely think you should use it.
Yep, I totally agree. And we encourage our members, in fact, the whole industry, to get into it. There's one that come through, and I made a mention in my little bit for you, Cameron. I think probably it's one is the automatic mutual recognition. We see regulators have concerns, and you've been quite active on LinkedIn in relation to putting your position there. And we see that the delays happened in New South Wales, ACT and Victoria, and the other jurisdictions have got to get legislation in place to bring AMR on. And we get the impression that South Australia may bring AMR on, Northern Territory has. So we've got 1 year delay. What's your position going forward with it, Cameron?
Well, I actually have a meeting later today with New South Wales Treasury, which is coordinating AMR in New South Wales, and we're going to talk about the consultation process that will happen, that needs to happen before we can possibly extend the exemption or lift aspects of it. So we'll be utilising the Security Industry Council primarily for that consultation, but I'll have more insight into that later today.
All right. Just in relation to that, questions come through as to what are you going to do, Cameron, in relation to getting AMR for master licensees? Because we know AMR, and I indicated, it only deals with individuals. What's the SLED's position in relation to trying to move that something like AMR nationally for master license holders?
Well, in terms of master licenses that are held by corporations, the AMR scheme simply doesn't support that. It's AMR mutual recognition generally only applies to occupational licenses. Now, a master license that's held by an individual is considered to be an occupational license. And that's one of the things I'm considering as to whether master licenses might be a relatively low risk entry point, dipping our toe in the water of AMR. But again, it would only be for master licenses held by individuals. So it will never be available for corporations.
All right, I guess that's one of the areas that we look at. And I guess even in the Security 2025, we do indicate and have done for a while the possibility of a more national legislation that would then capture opportunities. And maybe John Gillell, John, we see ASIAL and Brian's announced that we've got some future programs in relation to Security 2025 with the webinar. Where do you think our association is going to be moving with the Security 2025?
Thanks, Peter. Good morning to everyone on the call as well. Well, I think the biggest thing as an association that we can do is that we will be doing is communication and education. So we have now produced this great paper. Now it's a matter of communicating what the industry is doing today, where the industry will be in 5 years, and the steps, to get to where we need to be. We've got to communicate to the industry, of course. We've got to communicate to regulators. We've got to communicate to end users. And part of that communication, we've already released a publication in The Age for mass market communication. But yeah, communication is definitely the key. We want to, one of the biggest things, there's a couple of big things out of this report. One is certainly the 12 steps to be future ready. So what are these 12 steps that were identified in the report? And what does each of us need to do? What do we need to do as an association? What do we need to do as members and as the industry? The other part is the size of it, and really recognising the size and what we do, as an industry to play our part to keep the country safe. I mentioned this in a lot of my discussions now. We're an industry that's $11 billion. We're an industry that has over 150,000 licensed security personnel. We employ over 180,000 people with support services. That gives us a big voice. We're larger than the police force and the military combined in Australia. It gives us a big voice, and I don't think as an industry we've recognised that before. So we just need to take those messages, use the strength of what we have, and get it out there. Education. If I can just talk about that now, we'll play a role in educating the industry and our members with those 12 steps and how people can get from point A to point B. But education is, or this report's, like any part of education, you can kind of, you can grab this report as a member and sit in the back of the class. We can grab the report and sit in the front of the class. It's up to every member and everyone in the industry to actually take that report, learn from that report, and speak up about the report and engage with the association on that report to get the most value out of it, just like any part of education.
All right, thanks, John. There's one just come in, just one for Jack, if Jack is still online. Some of the new Guardhouse features, when are they going to be released? Have we got a timeline on those at all?
Yeah, hi, we do. We're actually slightly ahead of schedule. So we'll be releasing welfare checks next week. And we'll also be releasing the ability for staff to update and manage their compliance uploads next week as well.
All right, thanks very much. Another one just come through, I guess, in relation to what Cameron was talking about on non-compliance. And the question was, what steps has ASIAL taken to, and the word used, defrock member companies and individuals that have been prosecuted for licensing or related breaches? From that general point of view, ASIAL has a lot of members that are suspended, cancelled and what have you. Brian, you might be able to just make a comment on that one in relation to what our process is when a member becomes either non-compliant or is in breach of the professional code of conduct.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Yeah, we certainly have a disciplinary committee that meets. It's chaired by an independent lawyer based in Melbourne. And we go through a due process. We probably expel 15 to 20 members for non-compliant reasons. So, but we have to do it on a transparent process. So we do actually pursue companies who are members who do the wrong thing, but you've got to have procedural fairness. And as I say, we've been doing that for the last 10 to 15 years. And typically 15 to 25 members each year are expelled for compliance-related matters. So we do actually action those things.
All right, and Brian, I guess that's things do take time, and I can just reflect on one now with Cameron that it's been gone, but quite some time back, we do bring a lot of information to regulators on non-compliance. But from memory, Cameron, we had one where it involved a couple of jurisdictions, New South Wales and Queensland. And by the time the investigation was done, it was probably just under 2 years before all the T's were crossed and the I's were dotted before the regulator could take action. So some of these things, investigations do take time, don't they, Cameron?
Yeah, they. I can't recall that specific one, but yeah, we've had some matters, a bit of profile in the media, and those matters, they can take quite a long time. It's rare that some companies cooperate with a non-compliance investigation, and if there is very concerted non-cooperation, it can be quite timely to get hold of witnesses and have those interviews.
Yeah. All right. And I also just remind everyone online that in actual fact, we do have a process that if someone does not want to communicate, and SLED have got a process on their web page for complaints, and ASIAL has as well, and we bring that information to regulators regularly from nationally to all regulators every month if someone lodges a complaint about a performance of a person that is either non-licensed or even licensed. Cameron, there's one area just in relation to, it's SMS to me, and I made mention previously with you, the first aid qualification. You don't get any argument from everyone I've spoken to about organisations being responsible for their employees to ensure they have a current first aid certificate. What has kept on coming up is the difficulty in administration nightmare of capturing that certificate of the subcontractor who may have responded to an alarm response in regional New South Wales, and 1 week you've got one person, the next week you've got another person. We capture their licenses in relation to the compliance, but the administration area of having to capture their first aid certificates in that regard, where everyone's very happy from who I speak with in regard to capturing their first aid certificates for all their employees. So do we have an opportunity there to sort of place some positions to you for a bit of your consideration and easing up on that?
Yeah, I'll certainly consider it. I mean, the fact is that our entire legislative model changed around 2012 to be a model where there is top-down compliance obligations through principal contractors down through subcontractors, and a fair amount of record-keeping requirements associated with that. As you say, not only the requirements to keep license details, but copies of sign-on registers and incident registers. So to be honest, I don't see the capture of the first aid as a significant extension of that, but certainly open to consider views put forward.
Yeah, it was just the ones that come back to me is the capturing of information's now really well established in New South Wales under the legislative compliance requirement, and as seen when SLED are doing their audits, it was one of actually physically capturing that bit of that certificate and bring it in from those subcontracting organisations. But we'll take some opportunity and put that to you. But I do thank you for that. One question I missed in relation to that was, I think one for you, Chris Delaney, is do we have to pay casual employees sick and carers leave on top of their casual loading? You might be able to assist us there, Chris.
Yeah, that's an easy one, Pete. The short answer is no. The 25% loading that is paid to casuals is paid to cover things like paid leave that exist for full-time and part-time employees. So a casual realistically can accept or reject work at will, but no paid leave available.
All right, thanks, Chris. I think that probably just about brings us to the end of our questions, and I do appreciate the questions coming through, even the ones that have been SMS through and what have you, where we certainly try to take note of those. The thing being is that we've got to keep dialogue open, and we do, in particular, the regulators right around Australia, and Cameron in particular, we can have some good, robust discussions with regulators. And the thing being is, at least we've got access to the regulators, and we do appreciate that. But certainly from our point of view, I'd like to thank John Galell, ASIAL's new president. Congratulations, John, on the appointment. And we look forward to you driving the Security 2025 on behalf of ASIAL and on behalf of the industry. We think it's a great initiative. Jack and Julian from Guardhouse, in relation to that, thank you again for your support, continued support. Without your support organisation, and there's something there called money as well, but thank you very much for that. We do appreciate it, and it is a help. Brian, for your commitment in relation to ASIAL. Gav Schneider and Gav and his organisation have done a lot of work in relation to Security 2025, and it puts a good document together that we can actually see that there is a road forward in relation to where our industry is going. And again, Cameron, just thank you very much for your attendance. You've been a great supporter of ASIAL, and we know you get out there, and I encourage everyone to keep an eye on LinkedIn and SLED social media. You are using it, and you try to get your message out there, and certainly we do thank you for your commitment and appreciation. And Cara and Leanne, in relation to Mas National, our industries have been a bit ignorant in relation to projects like the one in relation to traineeships and apprenticeships. They're really important that can actually encourage organisations to take on new employees and have some of that cost addressed, and that's really good. And we do a thank you for your commitment. And without question, Chris Delaney, certainly Chris has been a stalwart in relation to our industry, but advice to our members during this period of COVID, right across Australia. Chris and I have been extremely busy in trying to support members. We don't have all the answers. And as Chris said, there's no easy answers in this. And when you go to the top professionals, there's always opinions in relation to it. So we can only provide you the best information so you can make the best decisions. And last but not least, Suzette, thanks very much for your commitment to the industry in New South Wales. It certainly is appreciated. And I thank everyone for your attendance. I know a few have dropped off. Do appreciate your time. Time is very important, but also the information we can provide to members is what we try to do. And this is one of those opportunities. Can't get face-to-face at the moment, but this is the next best thing. So thank you very much. Stay safe and have a great day.
Thank you.